Okay, so this is going to be your task 6. It says open the file countdown task.html in both browser and a text editor. Much of the JavaScript in the countdown task file has been completed, and there are comments included to explain important sections of the code. Now you're required to complete the timer function, which must display the images of the numbers 5 to 0 in the cell with ID equals to display counting down in seconds. The cell must display 0 before the start button is pressed. Add programmer comments to explain how the code you add works. So save the file in the HTML format and the file name countdown timer followed by your centerma candidate number. Now I've given this exercise, but I have restricted, or let's say given this task or give this task not from 5 to 0 but from 9 to 0. Why? Because this is 2019's March paper. If you look at that paper, so we already have done this in the graphics bit 2019 March QP4. So in the graphics task, you are required to create numbers, and these numbers were from I think 0 to 9. Yeah, this was 0 to 9. You were to save them. So you already have the PNG version of the numbers, right? Then in the animation, you're making use of the same numbers and you tend to complete this animation task. We also have done this, I guess, in the class. Then consider two types of character display shown. This is basically a theoretical question. Moving on. This is basically related to your, I think, axis. Further moving on, this is again Excel. Previous one was also a spreadsheet. This one was also a spreadsheet. Now this is task 5, making use of the same numbers that you have saved already in the graphics task. However, the timer is to be done from 5 to 0. But when I usually give this exercise in the JavaScript class, so I tend to keep it from 9 to 0. Difference is nothing, as you just have to punch in the right number. Now let's look at the HTML file that they have provided us. We'll open it up in Dreamweaver. First, look at the design. We can see one placeholder. We also can see one button. Run it in your browser, right? So it says task 5 programming for the web JavaScript, a digital countdown. This is a placeholder where probably the image will come. Click the button to start the countdown and this will start. Yeah, so you get the scenario. It has to be a timer effect. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Right now you look at the code. I've selected the button, going on to the code and going to review the code. They also said much of the JavaScript code is already written. Let's look at the button. The button is basically calling the function countdown. Okay, and now if you look at the script, which is basically a part of the header section of the HTML, it does not matter. I can copy paste it after the HTML. I've told you earlier, it does not matter where the script is written. It will still be executed because it is not a part of your HTML visually. Got this? Achha. Now, if we review the function, it says function countdown. Now, this is from where the instructions start for the function. We have a variable which is set to 6. The variable name is count. Now there's another variable name which is pause, and there's a function applied onto it which says set interval timer. Timer is something else, and then 1000. Right? So this is the syntax for the set interval timer. So you need to define where you want to apply it and what should be the timer effect. So over here, when we punch in 1000, it says that this will call the timer function after every second, which means the number over here is actually in millisecond. Okay? So set interval is basically the name of the function. Within the bracket, you have two parameters. One, where you want to apply it. Two, how many milliseconds. If you wanted to change after 1 second, that's 1000. Got this? अच्छा, अब ये जो इसमें टाइमर लिखा हुआ है, टाइमर is actually calling another function. ठीक है? Which is within the countdown function, not existing separately within the countdown function. The timer function says that count is set to count -1. Now this statement is actually used for decrementing a value. एक वैल्यू कम कर देना. अभी इनिशियली हमारी काउंट की वैल्यू क्या है? 6. तो यहां पे देखो ये काउंट है, यहां पे क्या आया? 6 - 1. दैट मींस द न्यू वैल्यू इज 5 और 5 कहां पे असाइन हो जाएगी? काउंट के ऊपर. हमने एक और भी चीज चेक की थी कि वी कैन ऑल्सो राइट, लेट्स से इफ आई वांट टू इंक्रीमेंट, आई कैन राइट काउंट प्लस प्लस, दैट ऑल्सो इंक्रीज बाय 1, और काउंट माइनस माइनस इज डिक्रीजिंग बाय 1, डिक्रीमेंट. ठीक है? सो ये इस तरह भी कर सकते हो, और ये इस स्टेटमेंट के साथ भी उसका यही मतलब है. हमें इसको चेंज नहीं करना बिकॉज दिस इज ऑलरेडी गिवन बाय द एग्जामिनर. Just removing the extra spaces. अच्छा जी. So count is going to be count -1, that is 6 - 1, that is 5. Okay. Now there's a condition. If the count is less than 0, is it less than 0? No, the count is 5. Okay. If it is, then what do? Clear the interval, pause. Okay, now what does it do? It will stop the interval timer, calling the timer function when the count variable is equals to 0. So, point is, when you start, the variable count is set to 6 and variable pause is assigned by the value being set by this function. This function is going to change the value of count after every second. Do you get this? अच्छा, काउंट की वैल्यू चेंज क्या हो रही है? काउंट की वैल्यू 1 सेकंड के बाद डिक्रीज कर रही है. सो इट इज बिकमिंग 6. इट इज ऑलरेडी 6, देन 5, देन 4, देन 3, देन 2, देन 1 एंड देन 0. ठीक है? अच्छा, और अब ये क्या है? ये टेस्ट हो रहा है किसका? काउंट की वैल्यू का. अगर काउंट की वैल्यू 0 से कम हो जाए, बिकॉज एज पर द फंक्शन ऑफ टाइमर द काउंट इज गोइंग टू डिक्रीमेंट बाय 1. So after 0 it will be -1. -1 होगा तो ये क्या करेगा? क्लियर इंटरवल, पॉज. पॉज का मतलब, क्लियर इंटरवल क्या है? एक इंस्ट्रक्शन है, एक फंक्शन है टू क्लियर द वैल्यूज ऑफ समथिंग. ठीक है? अब यहां पे उसने लिखा क्लियर इंटरवल पॉज. पॉज क्या है? ये वेरिएबल है, which means कि उसको वो रोक देगा. So उसने लिखा भी हुआ, this will stop the interval timer calling the function the count variable equals to 0. Now do you get this? The whole scenario. अच्छा, अब बात यह है कि हमने लाइन ऑफ कोड एंटर करना है. Where the number is to be placed? Over here in the placeholder. If we click on the placeholder, we click on the code, we zoom in, and we get to know that this is being given an ID as display. So we are to display the image over here. समझ आ रही? अच्छा जी. Now what do we have to do in this? And like I said, the scenario, I am changing it to not from 5 to 0, but from 9 to 0. It does not matter because it's just going to be a number which you have to change. Acha. The other thing which is to be kept in mind, I have given you numbers which are varying in sizes and also they have a white background. So first of all, you need to have a consistent size of the numbers. I've already done it. They are all converted into a PNG. And considering that you have done the 7 segment wala graphics task, so you already have these numbers of the same size. Agreed? आपके पास initially पहले से ही होते हैं. ठीक है? ये मैंने खुद से डाले हुए हैं so that कि when मैं क्लास में दूं ना इसको, तो बच्चे जो है वो ग्राफिक्स वाली चीज भी जो है ना वो थोड़ी सी प्रैक्टिस कर ले कि इसमें से इसकी बैकग्राउंड रिमूव करें, पीएनजी बनाएं और उसको सबको, सारे नंबर्स को एक ही साइज. नाउ दीज नंबर्स, each number is basically being set to 60 by 100. The width is set to 60 and the size is set to 100. ठीक है? The one I have shared with you is not in this format. They might have white backgrounds and stuff. So you have to resize them, you have to bring it to consistent size and also remove the background. Once this is done, the HTML is existing in my folder and the files are also existing in a folder. All the images are named as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. True? Look at the instructions. Required to complete the timer function which must display the images of the numbers 5 to 0. In the cell with ID display, counting down in second, the cell must display 0 before the start button is pressed. Which means what? By default, it should be displaying what? 0. And when we click on start, it should start counting down to 0, starting from 5 and so on. Okay? I hope you're able to follow this. Now, in my code, this is the placeholder. This is the image source. Image source is what? Blank. I need to display what? 0. So 0 basically goes by the name 0.png. Right? If we run this, before the button is basically pressed, we get to have 0 by default over here. And we click on start, nothing happens. Why? Because we have not set the display properties, or it is not going to display the images in the placeholder which is named as display. ठीक है? अब करना क्या है? बहुत सिंपल है. हमने इस टाइमर फंक्शन के अंदर हमने क्या करना है? हमने एक लाइन ऑफ कोड ऐड कर देनी है जिससे क्या होगा कि इमेज जो है ना वो यहां पर डिस्प्ले होना शुरू हो. बाकी जो चीजें हैं, the examiner has given them already. It works. The only thing which is missing is the reference of the image. मान लो that this is to start from 5 to 0. ठीक है? From what? 5 to 0. By default, it is to be displayed as 0. We have already done it. The image source is being set to 0.png. Now, what we are going to do is in the timer function, because this is from where the interval starts, so we have to refer to the timer function. Now, in this timer function, we are going to add document dot get element by ID. What ID are we looking for? Display. Very nice. Display. I hope the syntax is the same. Yeah. Display. Okay. Now, what do we do? The attribute is dot source. Display. Sorry. Okay. So dot source. Now what's the source? If I define it or type it out just like this, 1, 2, 3, will it change? No. I will have to think of defining it as a name which will change as per the timer. So the timer is basically starting from, let's say, 6. First of all, it will decrement a value, right? And it will display 5. Then it should display 4. Then it should display 3. I cannot come here and change the source again and again. Right? So what I'll do is, I'll just refer to the file name of the count. File name मेरी क्या है? 0 से लेके 9 तक है. Count मेरा क्या चल रहा है? As per this, मेरा count चल रहा है 6 से लेके 0 पे. ऐसा ही है ना? ठीक है? So basically मेरा 6 की अगर 6 हो .png कर दूं तो फाइल नेम बनता है. अगर 5 कर दूं तो .png फाइल नेम बनता है. सारे नंबर्स के नाम भी तो यही है ना, 1 2 3 4 5 6, और 6.png है, 5.png, 4.png, count.png. लेकिन काउंट को हमने क्या करना है, इसके साथ कंकैटिनेट करना. ठीक है? सो हम लिखते हैं काउंट प्लस स्पीच मास्क में .png, बिकॉज png इज बेसिकली द फॉर्मेट एंड इज सपोज्ड टू बी इन द टेक्स्ट. ठीक है? अब मैंने इसको साथ क्या लगा दिया? काउंट लगा दिया. काउंट ऑटोमेटिकली नंबर्स में हो रहा है, नंबर्स को साथ png लगाओ तो मेरे फाइल नेम बन जाते हैं. तो इससे क्या होगा, ऑटोमेटिकली चेंज भी होता जाएगा और मेरा काम भी चलता रहेगा. Now we just added one line of code to display image. Let's test this out. If we click on start, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The timer function is running after every second. Count is initially set as 6. So the initial value. Now look at this. When I have to display the count, the image in the placeholder, it's given before my decrement, which is why it is starting from 6, because the initial value is 6. If I change this value to 5, now the initial value becomes 5 and it will start from 5. That is basically the criteria of the exam, that it should be from 5 to 0. Now if we run this and I click on start, it will start from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You got this? And if I have to change this from 9 to 0, all I have to do is I have to set the count value to 9. Run it. You get this? Yes, this is the function already applied. हाँ जी, ये मिली सेकेंड्स होता है. ये बुक पढ़े ना आप तो आपको पता चलेगा. सेट इंटरवल भी है वहां पे, क्लियर इंटरवल भी है. क्लियर इंटरवल किसका करना है? पॉज का करना है. पॉज क्या है? एक वेरिएबल है, उसकी वैल्यू क्या साइन हो रही है? सेट इंटरवल से हो रही है. सेट इंटरवल क्या कर रहा है? एक फंक्शन से वैल्यू ले रहा है जो कि चेंज हो रही है कितने सेकंड के बाद? 1 सेकंड के बाद. क्यों? क्योंकि ये मिली सेकेंड्स में. ठीक है. सो टाइमर के अंदर क्या हो रहा है? टाइमर के अंदर एक हमने इमेज का कोड ऐड कर दिया और साथ में क्या हो रहा है? डिक्रीमेंट हो रहा है. साथ में हमने एक चेक ये भी लगाना है कि भाई अगर काउंट 0 से नीचे चला जाए तो वो तो डिस्प्ले नहीं होना चाहिए ना. तो यहां पे हमने क्लियर इंटरवल किया. सो बेसिकली हमने नहीं लगाया, ये एग्जामिनर ने ऑलरेडी दिया हुआ. ठीक है. 2019 मार्च सिनेरियो एंड दिस वाज गिवन एज अ जावा टेस्ट टास्क 6. ठीक है. गो थ्रू इट. इफ यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस यू लेट मी नो.